So continuing our discussion on the books of Doom, the version of Doctor Doom that you guys know and love, the guy with the best one-liners, with a very arrogant, cocky attitude, we get that Doom finally. And the first thing we get is we get that Doom in spectacular fashion. As Doom makes his way from Tibet, to his homeland of Latveria, where the Romani territories were that he had grown up in as a child, when he comes back, he finds that things really aren't that different, that, the Russians are still running the show, that a lot of those individuals who were previously free are now being used as prisoners for the purpose of, railroad work and different things like that. In a lot of ways, this was par for the course during Russian society during this time, because the Russian society had always struggled under the communist regime of Lenin and Leon Trotsky, followed by Joseph Stalin, and even under Nikita Khrushchev, there had always been struggles in terms of the economic inequalities. And this is really just what we're seeing here. We're seeing this same premise being applied to the comics. But when Doom makes his appearance known, what he says is that he had spent, a week or so looking at the entirety of the landscape, trying to figure the best way to make his presence known. Does he simply show up and just start killing soldiers? Or does he rally people to his side? And any smart leader that's going to take over any territory knows the best way to take over that territory is to rally the common people to your side against the existing establishment. And this is what Doom does. As soon as he goes in, he immediately makes his presence known to soldiers, and he stands with his back to them, facing the enemy. And that right there is an indication to them that he's on their behalf. He's not facing them, he's facing the other guys. And so as he goes against these soldiers, the initial idea from them is they don't know who he is, they don't know where he's from, they don't know what he's about. He's just a guy in a metal suit and a green cloak, and he seems like he's a crazy person. One of the guys, and this is why I love this so much, one of the guys responds, "What the devil?" And Doom says, "I have seen devils, and believe me, Doom is something else altogether." And this is why I love Doctor Doom, because he has the best lines, and he says them so arrogantly, it just works. It just works so well. But what he does is he makes quick work of these soldiers, and as soon as all these guys are dead, he immediately turns his sights to some of the workers. Now, some of them recognize him, some of them know who he is, whether it's because of rumors that circulated around of his ongoings when he was a child and casting out the soldiers, or because some actually hail from his Romani territory. The fact remains that Doom tells them, spread the word, tell everyone throughout the land that Doom is here, and that Doom will not suffer you guys to bondage anymore. That Doom is effectively going to free them from the yoke of oppression, and he is going to rule Latveria justly. And so what he does is he kind of makes his last rites, he kind of makes his last rounds. He begins circulating around, he begins going to visit, different places, of course visits the grave, the children who had died, during the night of his mom's selling her soul and invoking magic. He's just kind of getting his bearings on, where Latveria is now versus where it was that he remembers it being. And so after this is done, he goes back to the temple and he begins his planning. He begins this process of going through and analyzing what's the best way to take out Latveria. And so the first thing he does, and the thing that seems to make the most sense after, spreading the word around the city or around the nation, is he travels back to his caravan. Now again, not everybody in this caravan was taken. Some of them were, but some of them also managed to escape and rebuild. Because again, at this point in Russian society, a lot of Romani caravans would band together for the sake of protection, simply because there's strength in numbers, and it just makes practical sense. But at the same time, they also wanted to live a life that was more free from the stringent constraints of what they saw under the communist regime of the existing leaders at the time. And so he initially meets with a guy named Boris. Now again, Boris was one of the people that wanted to cast Doom out, and Doom had made the promise to them that when he came back, if they had done that, that he would lay waste to their caravan. But because they didn't, he comes to them as a savior more so than a man who's going to lay waste to everything they know. And so what he does is he presents himself to them. He basically says, here are the things that I'm capable of. Here are the things that I can do. Here's how I can help you, escape oppression. And here's how I can help you live the life that you've been wanting to live this entire time. And so after sending word throughout the town, again, this is just a continuation of him bolstering forces, bolstering the common people to his side. Now, once he travels back to his realm, once he travels back to his base of operations, he he's met by the return of Valeria. Now, for Valeria, things have changed irrevocably. Things just simply aren't the way they were before. The Victor Von Doom that she knew has long since been gone. And this is actually a really cool part of the story, because for characters like Valeria, it allows us to see how much things have changed. And what I mean by that is we follow Dr. Doom, and yes, we can see progressions in his character. Yes, we can see his character change, but we don't quite understand how much his character has changed until someone else comes along that hasn't seen him for quite some time. It's like losing weight. You know, like you said, you go to the gym, you work out every single day, you don't necessarily see the weight loss. But if you take a picture once every month and then look at those pictures over the course of the year, you'll notice a dramatic increase in your size, you know, as time progresses. And so with Victor Von Doom, he's basically beyond the point of help. And Valeria recognizes this. She says, what you're doing here is not power. What you're doing here is not honoring your mother. It's not honoring your family. You're basically just becoming the same person that the Baron is, just by different means. But Doom doesn't see it this way. Doom does not see himself as the same kind of person as the Baron. Doom sees himself as a liberator. Doom sees himself as someone that can free these people from oppression and can make their lives better. And so what he does is he begins invoking again these very primitive forms of Doombots and has them fight on behalf of the common people as they lead revolts against the existing establishment. Of course, they start tearing down statues, things like that, but we end up transitioning over to the Baron. And what happens is the Baron has also come to the recognition that Victor Von Doom seems to be beyond his ability to control. But what also takes place is the Baron receives a message from Doom. Doom tells the Baron that when Doom was a child, that the Baron had taken Doom's father for the purpose of curing his wife of cancer, and that because Doom's father was not able to do that, the Baron had Doom's father killed. And so what Doom is saying is, you've basically made your own situation what it is. You have brought this on yourself, and it was inevitable that the time would come when you would fall. The question is, who would take him down? And so as this particular issue begins to come to an end, we move with Victor Von Doom as he leaves his base of operations temporarily, stands out on a balcony, and is met by thousands of people from across the land who have rallied under him, allowing him to overtake the Baron and to become the undisputed ruler of Latveria. Now, because issue number 5 was relatively short on, exposition that we could really discuss, I'm going to go ahead and just throw issue number 6 in here and let us continue to the story's conclusion. And this is really cool. I think you guys are really going to dig this. And so what happens is, of course, with Doom rallying all these common people to his side, the battle lines have been drawn. It's basically the forces of the Baron versus the forces of Victor Von Doom. Not only that, in every instance where someone rises to power, if they rise to power using oppression, this circumstance will always come to fruition whereby individuals among their own ranks will look to break away. They'll look to leave. Now, they may wait until someone of greater power comes along, but in the end, that oppressive ruler will always see their own destruction. And this is exactly what happens. With the forces of the King's men being almost decimated by the forces of Dr. Doom alongside his magic and his technology, what we learn is that some of the forces of the King feel the exact same way as the common people. They're tired of being oppressed. They're tired of living under a Baron that's so tyrannical. And so what happens is some of these soldiers actually defect away from the King and bolster the side of Victor Von Doom. And so in truth, for the Baron, from his perspective, this is really just an instance whereby it's only a matter of time before he loses everything. But even then, he's still unwilling to admit defeat. And the reason why is because within the castle, what he says is that no one has breached the walls of that castle for over 100 years. And so it seems virtually impossible. Not only that, the forces of, the Baron, they have tanks, they have advanced weapons, or at least modern weapons anyway. And in his mind, all these common people have nothing but pitchforks. But in the end, the issue here is that because the soldiers of the Baron have effectively turned against him, when the orders are given to strike down the forces of Dr. Doom, they do not obey. Instead, they ignore the orders, and they allow Dr. Doom to march headlong into the castle gates and to kill the Baron. Now, this is a really cool moment because, again, this sees Dr. Doom choking this man to death with his bare hands, which is kind of a homage to the first time that he killed a person. But more so than that, we also see that Dr. Doom is effectively christened you know, as the ruler of Latveria. But over time, because of the fact that the castle seemed to have been totally laid waste to, because of the fact that there had been so much struggling, so much suffering, Dr. Doom has the entire area rebuilt, and he basically turns it into a land of his own individual people. He turns it into a land that his people control. He is a ruler, he does have absolute law, or he does have absolute control, but the people that he rules don't look at him as a ruler, they look at him as a leader. And there's a huge difference there. In truth, depending on who it is that we're talking about, there are some rebel factions that don't necessarily agree with Doom, but on the whole, the people that are subservient to him do so willingly, and they would gladly, in a lot of instances, lay down their lives in order to ensure that Doom maintains his rule, because they know the alternative could be that much worse. And so what happens is, as this story begins to come to a close, we learn that after becoming Dr. Doom in his entirety, that Doom summons a projection of the demon entity Mephisto. And Mephisto says that he's been watching Doom. He's seen what Doom has become, and he begins to taunt him a little bit, but Doom doesn't want to hear anything about it. But what he says is that he'll give Doom an opportunity to fight for his mother's soul. Doom will be given the chance once every year to travel to the realm of Mephisto, battle Mephisto, and if Doom is successful, he will be able to bring his mother's soul back. Now again, this ties into why Doom was always pursuing absolute power. So for those of you guys who are curious as to why Doom was trying to capture the power of the Beyonders, or why he'd been trying to get his hands on the Infinity Gauntlet, it wasn't really for dominating the world. That was maybe a ploy that he had at some point in time, but it was always to harness the power that would allow him to travel to the realm of Mephisto and defeat Mephisto and get his mother's soul back. That was really the reason why he ever did any of that stuff. And so what happens again as we start to wrap this up is we learn that this entire interview is being done by a reporter, and that she is actually talking to a Doombot. Not only that, as this explanation begins to come to an end, as it starts to wind up, she talks to Boris. And what Boris says is that this Doombot had basically gone rogue, that this Doombot had basically become too sentient, kind of self-aware, and the result was that it was locked away by the real Dr. Doom. And so while this reporter is being escorted out, or at least what she believes to be the exit, it turns out that she's actually thrown in the prison cell. And the reason why is that Dr. Doom does not want anybody to know about his past. He does not want anybody to know who he is or where he came from. He wants to remain mysterious, and he wants to remain enigmatic. And so as far as we know, at least as far as this story comes to an end, this woman is going to spend the rest of her days in this prison cell as a prisoner of Dr. Doom. With that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end. I don't know about you guys, but I loved Books of Doom. Books of Doom was such a solid story. So let me know if you guys are interested in seeing more content about Dr. Doom. I'm kind of curious. And make sure you guys hit the sub button, become part of the Rob Corps, drop a like, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.